A topic that I hadn't really gotten in depth with my dad was, I know back when you was a senior, you had went to prison.
Yeah, I was 18, just turned 18, and I had a lengthy sentence too. It wasn't just a couple of days, it was 5 years, I didn't understand that I was dealing with so much pain and swimming in the pool of sorrow and blaming others for all the things that I was going through. I had to start, like I say, doing the tough thing, which is looking in that mirror and being accountable. Hello world, how y'all doing out there? Today we have another episode of Generational Health and Self-Love.
Yes, sir.
I'm your co-host, Life.
Ron Easy.
And we're going to piggyback off our last episode where Ronald was asking me questions about my past and my upbringing, where I was born, different things in my childhood. So we're going to start there. We didn't get to finish last time, but what we're doing here is basically we going into the mental aspect of generational health, not just the food, because a lot of people get confused with just being the way you eat, your diet, or anything like that. But we want to get into the mind and understand, like, why do we make some of the decisions we make growing up and doing things that's kind of off balance, that don't really coincide with nature. So we trying to break the cycle and do something different and just do some things that's, like I say, that's centered on the mind and the way we think, and just trying to go about making a better decision, like, instead of going off of emotions, because a lot of times we make decisions dealing on how we feeling at the time, when if we just sit back and just thought about it, we probably wouldn't make that decision because we can let our emotions just rest. So we're going to start off with some more questions about the childhood and just the things that were going on mentally and on why I was making some of the decisions I was making, and the difference in now growing up and just healing based on the things that happened as a young kid.
Definitely something that we finna touch on, because I feel like it's very interesting seeing how I've only heard like stories from different people and some stories from my dad about his childhood and back in the day, and I think it's very crazy how he can change from somebody who he was like when he was younger. Like, the person he was when he was younger is so much different than how he transitioned into who he is now. So hearing him talk about how he was back then is definitely going to be very informational, and just seeing how that spark changed in his head from him to move from that type of choices in his life to like how he, the good health and who we really are, and taking care of yourself. It's something I really want to dive deep into, so that's why we're really doing this. And I guess just to go ahead and start off, a topic that I hadn't really gotten in depth with my dad was, I know back when you was a senior, you had went to prison, and seeing how I just can't imagine how being a senior, you going to prison. Like, how did that experience change you? Like, how did that change you, or how did that make you feel mentally?
Well, it's funny you ask that, because thinking back on it, the way I see it now is different from the way I seen it then. Back then, it was almost normal.
Well, because
for people to go to jail at a young age at that time, that was like, it was normal. So it was kind of like, it wasn't like, it was a big deal, don't get me wrong, but in the moment, it was like, this is just what happens, because everybody go to jail. Yeah, it's not the craziest. We always go to jail. So once I became an adult and had children, and I put my kids in that same situation, mentally I wouldn't be able to take it. I couldn't imagine one of my kids being in prison at that age and dealing with some of the things that goes on in prison. So yeah, I was 18, just turned 18, and I had a lengthy sentence too. It wasn't just a couple of days, it was 5 years, I had a 10-year sentence, and I had to do half of that, which is 5 years.
Wait, 5 years from after just getting out, like being a senior, and then 5 years in prison?
Yeah. So I hadn't even graduated, actually. So I left April of 94, and I didn't come home till October of 98. So I was supposed to do 5. I ended up doing total 4 years and 6 months straight. So
you see, well, another thing about back in the day, I feel like people forget about how, like, I feel like we play around a lot more in our generation. Like back then, you wouldn't even be able to say like the B word to people because that's a fighting word back then.
Oh
like,
yeah, especially being in prison. If you didn't fight, you'd be washing somebody's drawers.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta take up. And then like when I went, like I said, I was 18, but I had been off the porch so long. I had been in the street so long, so I had pretty much. I ain't gonna say I heard it all, seen it all, but I was familiar with a lot of things that was going on, the slang and the way people talk, and I could kind of read people. So being in there, I was able to, I was okay as far as like, I wasn't worried about nobody. Yeah, I wasn't worried about nobody doing nothing to me or anything like that.
I mean, speaking of that, like, I know there was a lot of activity going on back then, like, drugs and a bunch of other stuff, but did you ever were you ever in a gang, like, back then? Were there a bunch of gangs around in that area, and were you ever a part of one?
Yeah, I had joined the gang at probably 14, 15, something like that. I had joined, probably 15, I think I was. I had joined the gang early.
So did you being in the gang, like, does that have anything to do why you went to prison as a senior?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I mean, it does, but in a way, it really don't, because it was something I was doing on my own with some people that I was in the gang with. But I probably would have did it anyway, gang or no gang, because I was already doing stuff even without a gang. So I joined the gang, and unlike a lot of people's story, my gang life didn't last too long. It lasted a few years. I went to prison, like I said, at 18. I was in the gang when I got there. By the time I turned 19, I had got moved, because you do a certain amount of time in the county, and then they send you to the Department of Corrections where you start your sentence. So once I got there, I knew a lot. I was, to be young, I knew a lot of street stuff. So even in prison, it's almost like being on the street. So I had responsibilities even within the gang in prison, and I'm 19 and I'm telling people 30 and 20 something, and I'm telling them what to do. So it was just like, I used to laugh and be like, this is crazy to myself when I go back up to my cell. So what I did was I was strategizing on how to get up out of the gang, and leaving the gang in prison is probably one of the hardest things you can do.
Yeah, because ain't it a problem if you try to leave a gang? Like, don't you got to get jumped out or something? I don't know.
Not really jumped out, but like the gang that I was affiliated with was out of Chicago. So
can you say that more?
I mean,
okay,
it's okay. You just don't want to promote the wrong thing. Yeah. But the gang I was with was out of Chicago, and so they had structure. I can't lie, it was rules and different stuff like that. But at the same time, it wasn't doing me any good. So, like I said, I came up with a way to get up out of there, and I did it.
While you was in prison?
Yeah, while I was in prison, and it was like I said, it's kind of one of the hardest things. You can't have no heart full of fear. You really got to be stand up, independent. And at that time, like I said, they was looking up to me anyway. So it was kind of like I made the transition at a good time.
Well, I be hearing about when I heard from like my mom or somebody else about how y'all was back in the day in Alton. Like, everybody say if they heard your name, they know not to mess around with nobody you with or whoever you hang around, or But what did initially make you want to join the gang, or is that just like what everybody did back then?
Everybody did, but before I actually joined the gang, it was gangs around that a lot of my friends had joined, but I didn't. And I was kind of like, whatever. I ain't gonna be in no gang. But then I got with some people that was from, like I said, from Chicago. And so that kind of got my interest. And so I joined the gang. I started going up there on occasion when I was like 17, going up there with different people that was part of the gangs in Chicago. And of course, you heard, it was wild in Chicago, and it still is.
Yeah.
So
Chicago, I already know it's not somewhere you play around in.
Yeah. So I was going up there at 17 in a stolen car.
And it's over.
With a fake tag in the back of it.
Oh, all the way up to Chicago.
All the way to Chicago, which is like a 4-hour drive from from Holmes, from that Alton St. Louis area.
Yeah.
So I was driving up there and just, I was just out of control. And I was like I was saying in the last video, that's why I contribute going to prison as helping save my life, because I was doing 90 in a 30, going about to be crashed.
Yeah. I mean, I know now you don't you think about back on the things you did, but when you was in the moment, I mean, I'm sure that stuff was like I'm not gonna say exciting, or maybe you wouldn't think of it as being super wrong of you to be doing this stuff you was doing back then in your head in the moment.
No, once I got, not in the moment, but I mean, in a way, you got a conscience. Some people got a conscience, but when I was in jail, I was I always was accountable. I always took accountability for my actions. So even being in there, I was like, I couldn't blame nobody but myself. I made those decisions. I did those things, and that's where I find myself. But now I had to adjust. So I can't be trying to worry about what's going on out there, because now I'm in here. And so being in here, dealing with the time I got, it's people in here. Like when I got to prison, and when I was in the county for like 9 months, like I said, then they sent me to prison. And when I got to prison, where I was actually gonna be and serving my time, the guy I was in the cell with was like, it was 95, January 95, and at the time he had been locked up since 1976.
Dang, 1976.
So yeah, so here I am. I'm 18, about to be 19. He been gone all as he started his jail sentence the year I was born. So. But he was an older guy. I respected him and all that, but I was kind of wild. So, after a while, I started talking crazy to him. Like, man, you and he was like, I'm going to tell your brothers and all this, talking about the gang and stuff like that. And I used to be like, man, I don't care about them. So he eventually, they in prison, some people can make stuff happen. So we eventually got him moved out of there, and it was somebody else came in there that was cool, so. That's just, like I say, it was just so many different things in there. I got into fights in there a couple different times.
Okay. So another thing I heard is while you was in prison, at one point you eventually got prison. You was in prison with your brother.
Yeah.
So was that the same? The 5 years you spent in there, was that when you was with him too? At some point?
During the 5 years, he had got in trouble and he got sent to prison.
Yeah, I ended up.
So it was crazy because we ended up in the same prison, and that was so.
I heard about that.
And it was crazy about the whole thing is, at the time I never thought about it, but years later I thought about how that could have probably affected my mom, having both her sons in prison.
I didn't think about that.
And what she was going through out there. Like I said, at the time I wasn't really thinking about it. And he ended up coming to the prison I was already at. And when he arrived, I hadn't seen him in a while. He was big, strong.
Yeah, I heard. The stories about man. I know you probably. I don't know if you talked about him for real, but. He
was pretty big, and I'm gonna tell you one thing though. Like one of the hardest things in being in there with him was the day that he left, and I could see my mom picking him up and him leaving, and I couldn't go because I still had time left.
So he came in there after you was already in there, and still left before.
Left before me. And
seen them leave.
Yeah, I'm sitting there watching. I can see my mom. She waving at me. I'm by, and he leaving. I'm like, man, I can't wait. I can't wait. And
how much longer did you have in there?
Well, when he left, I had 6 more months. So it was pretty much towards the end. It was like 6.5 months left. But it still was like, wow, he on his way home. I'm still here. So that was that was mentally, you have to be strong. You can't be weak. You have to be strong. And and you have to try, at some point you got to change your mindset too. Yeah. Because they have you in places that, you wouldn't even imagine. And it's just like, you see a lot. You see people get hurt, you see people get beat up, you see people. You don't always see things, but you hear things as well. So it's you have to. So a lot of young dudes out here, and they going to prison, and they really showing out in front of people, not realizing that you can get taken advantage of if you ain't headstrong, because you can play like you from the streets, you can play like you tough, but you will be in a situation where you're gonna have to be what you say you are.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people growing up, well, since I've been in high school, throughout high school, so a lot of people want to act like, do stuff that you have experience doing, and want to be street and want to play around, but they don't know what's on the other side of that, the real. Because once you get in prison, I've only had a taste of it, like being in a holding cell and all that, and I already know if you don't have a strong mind, oh yeah, you're done, because them people will test you in there.
You got piranhas in there. They sharks in the water. They looking for somebody that's weak, and they gonna do you. They gonna really get over on you. So your best chances is to just let their life go, because their life gonna have you somewhere. I remember a young dude was in there, and he probably was like 20, 21. He had 45 years.
So
like it's over. He out of that 45, he got to do like 27, 30 years basically.
30 years.
He gonna be in his 50s when he come home. I seen a lot of people in there ain't never had their own apartment yet.
And they just in there for almost life.
Can't even, so I seen a lot of people in there with a lot of time. Even my time, like, I feel like was a lot, but then when I seen other people with time, some people like, man, I've been here since 89, and it's like
2000.
It's almost 2000. It's people been in there. It's people that have been in there for a long time, so it's like.
Yeah, and then I feel like jail is just one of the things that can happen when you try to portray something you're not. But even it's stuff that happen outside of jail that's just not what you want. But you want to, if you think you want that, it's stuff that come with it that you probably not prepared for, because you just acting.
Yeah, you really not, and then you're not even look. A lot of kids, younger teenagers and stuff like that, they don't really understand the stress that they put on their mom and their parents if they have both parents. But a lot of times you see these kids acting out because they come from single parent homes, but they don't understand the stress that they put on their parents. They don't understand like what they doing for their future. They don't really understand the situation they setting themselves up for. Like, you setting yourself up for a lifetime of pain and misery, thinking that you portraying an image that's fake, that's a facade, that's really not real. Because a lot of people that they see, a lot of kids listen to this music and they listen to these rappers, and no disrespect to them, but a lot of them ain't living the life that they promoting.
I don't, yeah.
So you got children, you got kids and young adults, you got even grown men trying to be like the people they see on TV, these rappers, and betraying an image that just ain't real. And even if you have been to jail, that ain't something to promote like it's something that's good. It's okay to talk about it and share your experience, and so people can understand or try to get an understanding of what it's like without having to actually physically go there. So that's the big thing with me even sharing my story and even talking to you, because that's something that I never wanted none of my children to ever have to experience, because that's a life, that's a different type of life. And it's really, it's rough, it's hard, it can be really hard.
Just knowing where we come, like Alton, this has been the same since, so I'm pretty sure since you was younger. It's still got the old houses, the brick roads, and and I don't understand how, like, until recently I didn't know that a lot of people that I seen, acting like hard in different schools, that was acting all like trying to be gangster and all extra, I didn't know that they come from like big old houses and like good neighborhoods. Like, if you compare like what they have to what I see in Alton, like it's crap. Like, the Alton is crazy, but I don't get like what is it that makes them want to try to act like that and act hard or whatnot. I mean,
Because that's the image. That's the image that's being portrayed throughout. You just listen to the music.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Watch some of the TV shows. You know, they see that and they want to be that, but they don't get the other side of it. What comes with that. They don't understand that you can be here one day and then the next 30 years you could be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or you could be dead. Because that's another part of it too. A lot of people don't make it. Like, I didn't ever think I was going to ever be this age growing up. I thought I was going 19, 18, it's over with, you know, or it's pretty much, you know,
I mean,
like I just couldn't see 40. I couldn't see 30. I couldn't see 25. I couldn't see none of that. But I strive to do better. I wanted to change. But you got to want to change too, because a lot of people don't want to change. A lot of people worried about what other people going to think about them. They worried about the image that they portraying off to other people. They thinking like, okay, if I change, if I do something different, or am I going to be seen as soft? Or I'm going to be seen as somebody who ain't tough, or who ain't this, or who ain't that, which you should really care about what nobody think about you. Because the biggest battle, the biggest fight you ever be in is going to be with yourself.
That's the truth.
Because that's the person you fighting with every day, all day. This is the person that you telling yourself every day, oh, I'm not gonna spend this money, and you spend it. Or I'm not gonna eat this, and you eat it. Or I'm going to the gym, you don't go. So, you know, it's like we can point the finger, like with me, all the different things I went through in my childhood. I couldn't point the finger at nobody once I became old enough to take care of myself. Now the responsibility is on me. I can't talk about my mom or my dad, my sister, my brother, what happened to this. It's like once you become adult or a certain age, especially mentally, it's time for you to start taking care of yourself and taking accountability for your own actions and stop blaming everybody else.
Because I mean, like blaming won't do anything. It's not gonna change nothing. It's just not. It's dwelling on the past for no reason.
Yeah. So you definitely want to do that.
And I know in jail, you said that you got out the gang in jail, but ever since you've been out the gang, have you ever had any contact with anybody, or has anything ever happened with the gang since you got out?
Oh, when I got out in prison, I ended up having a fight with about 3 of them.
3 of the people, the members from the gang?
Yeah, because see, when I got out, at the time, there was a guy that was on the same unit as all of us, and he was well connected and well respected. So me and him was real cool. So when I told him that I wanted to go ahead and what they say drop your flag, that means you let go of the gang. So when I told him I want to do it, I went to him first, and he was cool with it. And at the time in prison, you have they call a right to worship, right? So you go
they call it what?
A right to worship, like go to church, or they got church, or you can go to like. They got the Muslims, or they got the Moorish Americans and stuff in there. So at the time, I was going to every Sunday and Friday. I was going to Moorish American studies. So the more I was going there, and I used to read all the time too when I was locked up. I wasn't just sitting around watching games and playing dominoes and all that. I used to read a lot. So that helped me want to remove myself from the gang. So when I went to my buddy, who was a high-ranking guy in the gang, and told him what I wanted to do, he knew I was sincere. So if you're not sincere, they're not gonna bless you, or they might act like they will, and then they'll do something to you.
Yeah.
But he knew I was sincere, because we used to sit up there and we used to talk about positive things in the books I was reading and stuff like that. And he used to read too, so we was kicking it on that level. So he called a meeting and we all sat down, we talked, and they was like, like, man, we understand this and this and that, and everybody was cool. But few months later, he ended up leaving, going to another unit, and when he left, it started to change a little bit. Now they starting to act a little distant. Now they acting funny. And I ended up getting in a fight with him, and I ended up not bragging or nothing. I came out victorious in the fight with 3 of them by myself.
Yeah, I don't think people understand. Like, they see you now, but if we had that picture still, I don't know if we could try to put it on there. But yeah, it used to be like. But
at the time, I wasn't. You gotta understand. When I was in prison, 18?
Yeah, I was. You was only 18.
Yeah, I was. When I went to jail, I was about 160. I wasn't big at all.
That dog, I know.
Yeah, I was 6'1" at the time. I mean, I still was tall, but no, I didn't have no weight.
I forgot that you was only 18, so you wasn't that big at that time.
I just get out, you know. And
yeah, I know because I got them too. So I'll be like, I understand.
So it was, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not bragging or anything because it could have went the other way around, but I actually defended myself correctly, and I was cool. And then, you know, they was mad and they was trying to get me sent off the block and all this old stuff, and I wouldn't leave like what they would call walking yourself, where you take yourself to solitary confinement. I wasn't doing that, but if I get moved to another unit, I'd do that, and that's what I eventually did. So from there, I had no more problems with the gang. You know.
Well, when that fight happened, how much time did you have left in there?
That was around like 96. I still had almost 3 years though. Like 2.5 years. I still have like 2.5 years. Yeah.
That's
I remember I was reading the book at the time. I remember I was reading How to Eat to Live. That's the book I was reading at the time.
Dang, I guess you gotta like contribute a lot of the stuff that you like to being, because you, like you say, because you got locked up, that really changed you. And I guess a part of that is the books you got to, you know, had, since you can't do nothing else, you able to read the books and just sit there and process everything you're reading. And like you said, you talked with the dude, you had talks about what you was reading too. I know that helped to like retain some of the information you see. But I guess that's something that contributed to make your change.
Like,
reading.
Oh, definitely reading it, because I used to love to read in there because the whole time I'm reading, it was like I wasn't in prison.
Yeah, cause
so it take me to another place. So
that's crazy.
I'm reading and I'm actually visualizing the things that I'm reading on paper. So it was fun. I block out everything and I just read. And then I went to school too for a lot of the time. So I would leave from I would be gone from 8 to 3, 8 to 4, something like that, every day, Monday through Friday. So when you went to school in prison, you like in a real classroom environment with teachers from the outside who actually teach at different colleges and different schools. So it was from that aspect. That was cool, not prison itself, but actually being able to learn and do things while in prison was cool. You know?
And I don't know if some of y'all still read, but he's not lying when he says a book can take you from where you might be sitting wherever you at, but when you start reading that book, if it's a good book, it'll take you wherever that book is set. Because I remember one time I was on punishment. I think I was on punishment for like a week maybe, but I found this big book that my brother gave me, and I was like, I can't do nothing else. Let me open the book. I opened the book, and I got so into it. Like when it was dinner time, I didn't even want to go downstairs to eat because I'm like, I'm trying to finish this book because it's taking me to a whole different place. And I, you know what? Another thing I realized is I looked back at that first book I read when I was on punishment, and when I started reading the first couple pages of the book, I'm like, I act like the main character in the book. I feel like I got a lot of my characteristics from, because I'm like, the way he was rebelling against this. I always been rebellious, and I was like, wow, I feel like I got a lot of that from reading that type of book. But about your childhood, do you think that was there anything in your childhood that made you that probably changed you mentally, or like were you ever abused when you was little, or?
No, I wasn't physically abused. Well, I can't say if you call them whoopings that my mom used to
Nah, they don't know about the whoopings back in the day. I couldn't imagine how it was.
She ain't gonna like this, but she used to put it down.
Man,
she hit me with everything that she can grab a hold to. So I wasn't sexually abused, which is a story that you hear a lot of, especially in our communities. You don't hear a lot of it. Actually, I call it the sweeping under the rug era, because they like to sweep a lot of things on the rug. They don't want to talk about it, you know. And so now you have people speak out more than they did in the past. But I know a lot of people that come from that. So no, I wasn't sexually abused, but I did take a lot. I took on enough whoopings for a house full of kids. I took it on myself. So, but that was just back then. Most kids was raised with that type of authority in the house, where the parents would just whoop them, you know, and yell at them while they whooping them, because that's what they came from. But a lot of people don't understand that that's not a part of our culture. That came from the slave master. You know,
whooping on them,
beating on. We didn't beat on each other because we had we can talk to each other. We had the mental comprehension to dialogue in a more respectful way than using violence to beat on each other like that. So that came from abuse and something that we seen come from the slave master of whooping each other.
It's just too bad that you didn't realize that until like further on.
No, it's not too bad, because if I didn't realize it, then the cycle we can't break the cycle. Yeah. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying. It would have been good to know these things then, but to know them now, it's still time to keep that from happening as we move on. Because
now I know.
Yeah, not only you, but then your children. See what I mean? See, it can keep. If you don't break the cycle, it will go from generation to generation, and that's what we're watching right now. The generations getting weaker and weaker and weaker. We're watching the households become weaker and weaker and weaker.
Yep.
It was a time when you did have a 2-parent home, then it went from a 1-parent home, and then it went from it just getting worse and worse and worse and worse because the things that we're being distracted by. We don't go out. The kids don't go outside and play. Like we did go outside and play. The children don't go outside and play. And if the ones that is outside, a lot of them get into things, you know, because they don't got a father at home. And you got a lot of guys out here that insecure. And like even back, like to go back to what you were saying about how people knew us and people knew me and all that other stuff.
I meant to ask, did that ever get to your head? Because you had to, like, you had a name back when we were, you know, in Alton. Did that, all that ever get to your head, being like, nobody didn't want to mess with y'all, you and you know, your little brother, and like.
Of course it did, but at the time, like I say, a lot of things you don't see in that moment, and once you change, then you start to see, and because your thoughts are different. You know, your perception is different. Back then, those things came with the person that you wanted to be. But that person was basically not knowing. It was a lot of insecurity, because whenever you use violence as your choice of to answer your problem, then that's showing signs of weakness, because you're not using your mind. We should be able to think our way out of a situation instead of using physical violence.
See, I think that's the thing that people don't see, that they just see you doing the things, but they don't know what's going on, like the process or how you might feel or the reason for doing it. They just, you know, they just only hear about the conclusion, what after.
No, what I'm saying is, even the reason back then, not now, but back then, most of the reasons still didn't warrant violence. See what I'm saying? I'm saying most of the reason that I was fighting didn't warrant violence. It was because that's the way we grew up. I'm saying that was wrong. I'm saying me resorting to violence to handle my problems was wrong. Even though I was looked at as being tough and he a fight and all that stuff was still wrong.
No, yeah, I know it was wrong.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm saying it was wrong. Yeah, it was wrong, but people that talk about it, you know, so talk about what you did, they only see the fact that you did it and you fought. Yeah. They don't know that you was doing it because of insecurities or like they know what you did, but they don't know the mind of the person doing what they talking about. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
Look, if you ever watch some movies and they have like gangs in the movies and stuff like that, most of the time, majority of the time, the leader is some little dude.
Yeah. That's calling all the shots.
Just calling all the shots.
Do this.
Because he ain't threw one punch.
Yeah.
But he using his mind. He ain't have to, and he can make people do whatever he wanted to do without yelling at them, without cursing at them. He just had the mental capacity to control people without using a gun.
Yeah.
And that's mental toughness. That's chess, not checkers. That's the way that you want to think, and you want to use those people in positive ways too. You don't want to use those people to be going out doing nothing to nobody. But I was just making the point that most of the time, the guy who's doing all the thinking, he ain't had to punch one person.
Yeah,
he had to hurt nobody. You know, just to get whatever he wanted done, he got it done. So again, this whole thing with the generational help and self-love is something that I feel like that ain't taught in our community. Self-love is something that we struggle with, because most of the people that we look for to get that from, they don't even know what it is, what it's like to love
like
themselves.
our parents and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
a lot of our parents
Still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, they trying to figure out. They've been, they go to work, so they spend a lot of time at work. They get off work, they tired. You know, nobody's reading. They took the libraries out the homes and put in nice kitchens.
Yeah.
You know, so you can have a nice kitchen, but also it's time to have libraries. Like, and I'm saying, like, even when we grew up, we didn't have hundreds of books, but we still had books. You would go see bookshelves, you see dictionaries, you stuff like that. Because it's just important, because the knowledge is in the books, the knowledge is in reading, the knowledge in the law, learning the law, and not just being told different things. So like what we doing right here with me and you is trying to break the cycle.
Yeah.
Like we've already done that, and we continue to do it, and we continue to break down barriers. Yeah. And so doing this is like therapeutic, it's healing too, because you get to sit with your father, I get to sit with my son, and this is something that experience that's a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
So it's something that once you 40, 50, you can still have this, and you can show your child, you can show your daughter, your
7
son.
kids.
Yeah.
7
However many you have, and you could do something similar, you know, because your job is to, and you already been doing it, but your job is to take it farther than what I did, and you already got a good head start, you know, because looking at your life, where you at right now, where you sitting, I wasn't sitting right there. At your age, you 20, I was in prison.
Yeah.
So right then and there, that's what I'm saying. It's already a part of breaking that cycle. You know, you done things at your age that I didn't do. You know, and it ain't a contest. It's just always about being better than the person before you.
Well, yeah. I mean, they just let you know you and mom doing a good job, because I mean, I seen that both of y'all been through so much, and y'all still was able to make sure that I'm living a better, a better off life than how y'all was when y'all was little. Because, I know, you know, you've been through a lot, and I know my mom got some stories she could tell on here, but one thing I do want to say, though, I feel like a lot of people, we all trying to look for love, and we look for love on outside sources, like from other people, or doing other things, or acting certain type of ways, and I feel like the world, the system tries to make us not look for love in ourselves. Like, it's always stuff that's make us go outside of ourselves to find the love that we looking for, and that's what keeps us in a constant cycle of just doing different things to try to find that love. But if we're not looking within, then I think, you know, that's
but people don't, even when you say look within, that's the right and definitely the right answer, but people don't understand even what comes with that, because like learning how to love yourself is like on every level. It's from your appearance, it's from your thoughts, from the things that you tell yourself. Like I was saying earlier, when you tell yourself you don't want to spend some money, you spend it anyway. That's all a form of loving yourself and appreciating yourself, waking up, giving thanks, you know, before being here, for having all your limbs, for not needing help to get out of the bed, for having, you know, a clear mind, like things that we just take for granted on a regular basis. Like, we have to get in tune, and we have to really understand about generational health. Not just what you eat, but just what you think, the music, the TV, the different things you watch, getting outside, just walking, just collecting your thoughts, not arguing, trying to just get over things. Because sometimes, you know, in our community, we can hold on to something for a long time.
Grudges,
and most of the time it's pain. We hold on to pain and just kick lug under the table. So that's why we find ourselves in that continuous cycle and repeating the same things of our parents, because we don't know how to let go and learn how to love instead of hate. We've been taught how to hate all the time. We see somebody, like, this is something real simple, and we've had to wrap it up because we almost done, but I just want to say, like, something real simple of just pure hate. We can be watching a basketball game, and you might like a certain player, and that might be your favorite player, and then I say, well, I like such and such. Well, since I like this person, oh man, F him, forget him. You don't even know this man.
Yeah.
And we'll sit up there and say some of the worst things about a person we never met. But had we met that person in real life, we show them all the love in the world. Oh man, I'll be watching you all the time. All the time you've been back there talking bad about it. And it's simple, but that's just a form of hate.
That's definitely worse nowadays. Like words, shoot, you can't say nothing, or you gonna get this or this. And I feel like we coming to a point in time though now that the truth is gonna start coming out no matter what it is. If you don't want to hear it, that's just too bad, because it's about that time. We didn't let too much slide and too much nonsense. There's no common sense no more. So it's coming to that point where it's coming back full circle, and we finna go back to just saying what the truth is, and that's just how it's gonna be.
That's where it's supposed to be, and we should let the truth shine light on us. We should always, like, you should be able to look in the mirror and love what you see. But so many people don't want to look in the mirror because they don't love what they see.
Yeah.
They really don't enjoy looking at themselves. So you see people talk about a lot of other people, and those are the people who struggle with dealing with themselves. Because you can talk about people and you can point the finger at people, but at the end of the day, you still gotta stand in that mirror and you gotta accept who you are. And I tell a lot of people, when they make dumb decisions, you should stand in the mirror and smack the first person you see, because that's the person responsible for your anger.
Yeah.
Even in relationships, we blame the other person, for this or that. But when you deal with people for years and years and years, at some point it becomes your responsibility and not that person.
Yeah.
If someone's not treating you right, just get away.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
I mean, I don't know if we have a little time, but I did want to ask you, did you ever struggle with depression?
I did, but you know what? I didn't identify it as depression, and then when you don't identify what the problem is, you can't solve it. So, I just, over the years, I used to just accept things. Like going to prison, it is what it is. I gotta adjust to it. This happened, I gotta adjust to it. Going to jail over and over again, I gotta adjust to it. So, I didn't understand that I was dealing with depression. I didn't understand that I was dealing with so much pain and swimming in the pool of sorrow and blaming others for all the things that I was going through. I had to start, like I say, doing the tough thing, which is looking in that mirror and being accountable. Which, I mean, I'm telling you, it's so hard for people to do, but I had to do it because I had children and I had to become a better person. I had to learn how to heal and how to let go. And once I did that, I didn't never struggle with depression. Like, do I get down still sometimes? Of course. But the thing about it is, I don't let that consume me. I don't let it overtake me internally. Because a lot of people are smiling on the outside, but they crying, they yelling on the inside, but they don't know how to ask for help because they're gonna feel weak. They're gonna feel like vulnerable. When if you need help, you gotta ask for help. That's the only way you're gonna fight through whatever it is you're going through. But you gotta go to somebody that you can trust.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people got their friends and they go and they ask them about. They actually trying to get good advice from them. Yeah. They just tell them, There's just some quick and not actually like thought out response, and then sometimes the people go with what their friends tell them, and then it's just another cycle. It's just,
and sometimes your friends ain't your friends.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes you put the label on people that don't belong on them. So you'll label someone as your friend, but in real life they're your enemy.
And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing from people close to me. I see some of their friends that's acting like they're enemies, and I don't see why the people I know don't see it. But I like you gotta pay attention to how your friends act when you let them know certain things, or when you bring them out certain places, what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like you can't just have people around you and you don't know who they really are, or what their intentions are.
Yeah, and and you just when you see that, you just do your best to stay away from them.
Oh yeah.
And if you happen to be somewhere or go somewhere and they there, you need to just move around. Because the chances of something bad happening are higher than they were if that person wasn't there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, we gonna go ahead and end this. Riding easy, like, yeah. So once again, y'all tune in. Generational health and self-love. Love, peace, take care.